Oh, hi there. Hey, I was just doing some watercoloring and I wanted to make a video for you. There are a few things that I think would help you. It's a pretty inexpensive art, but it was also, these are the things that I've learned, so it doesn't cost a lot of money for you. So I have a list of things I'm going to go over. Paper, brushes, paints, and making a color chart, taping it down. White is the absence of color, and then water. So first of all, let's talk about the paper. The paper is 140 pounds. Can you see that? And it's either cold pressed, which this is cold pressed, or it's hot pressed. And I don't know the difference, but I know that different artists will say whether they're using cold pressed or hot pressed. This is huge. They come in all different sizes, so you can get whatever size works for you. Another thing that is available is, and my sweet daughter-in-law got this for me, and it is a heavier paper. It's not watercolor paper, but it is designs that are already on the paper that are easy to watercolor. Now, the reason that you want watercolor paper is because water will absorb into the paper to a certain point and still remain watery or pliable. And that is the watercolor effect. So keep in mind, I'm not talking about acrylics or oils. I'm only talking about watercolors. So that was the paper. The brushes. So I have spent too much money on brushes, and I've learned the hard way. And it said right up front with things that I got, and I just got inexpensive brushes to just start with. I got really inexpensive paints to start with, and I don't think you need to do that. Just get the right stuff. There are multimedia brushes, which are nylon. That is not a watercolor brush. A watercolor brush is actually real hair, and sable is a popular one, but you want the real hair because the hair absorbs the water and the paint in a different way than the nylon or synthetic brush. Okay, so that's brushes. And just a FYI, this, I just got 3 of these, and you can see the tip, and it is definitely real hair, and I got it off of Temu for, I don't know, less than $5 for all 3 of them, and you can do a lot with these 3. Anyway, so that is brushes. Next one is paints. I have gone through a lot of different paints. This is one kind, and it's called cake paints. It's fine. It works good. This is really inexpensive. This is about $8 on Amazon. But the one that I think that you should get, and it's because of the brand, is tube paints. This is the same idea, only you're going to use it a little different. Instead of having it where this gets wet and you get the water color out of this, you open this up and put it into another container and then make use of it from there. And the brand of this is Winsor and Newton, and that's the key. Winsor and Newton, and I don't know if you can see that or not. Let me know if you need help with that. But it is a really good paint, and it will last forever. It is more expensive. It is not $8 for that I just showed you. Oh, just another one. I got this one because I like, this one is metallic. And so all of the different little shiny colors are in there. So with the Winsor & Newton tube, what you do is you get a palette like this, and you put a little paint in each of those little things, whatever you want to call them, and then you use that paint from there. Now, I'm just going to show you, one thing you want to do is you want to make a color chart of whatever colors you get. And this will help you as you go through your paints to understand what the color is really going to look like. And this is on the heavier watercolor paper. So we've gone through paints. Now, to get this wet, this is one of the best things I learned, and that is, this is just water, and I just spray this. Now that is activating the watercolor. Now, the other thing that you want is you want a clear white porcelain palette. And the reason for the porcelain, and I just got this at Home Goods for $5, just one of their plates that they have there. No, anyway, it does not collect the color. This is plastic, and the center of this actually collects the color, and you can't ever tell what actual color you're making or mixing. This you can rinse off, and it comes completely white. So you want that. I always have a little piece of paper beside me of the watercolor paper to just try out my brush to see if I like how much water is on my brush. Now, the other thing about water is 2 jars. One is dirtier than the other. You clean your brush in one, and then you rinse it off in the clear. The rule of thumb with the clear is that it should be clear enough and clean enough for a goldfish to swim in it. This one is going to get really icky looking. You rinse it off in this, and then you rinse it again in this, and this stays clean, and that helps a lot. Okay, so that is water. When you go to do a picture, you're going to pick whatever surface, and you're going to tape the picture down. And the reason is because watercolor paper has a tendency to bubble and make all sorts of different, because it got wet. But if it's taped down, it will dry flat. You can use regular masking tape. I've taped this down. This is the cheaper paper that I showed you, and this is the last one that I just did. And I am in love with the shading of that. That's the first time I've gotten the shading. You can see the metallic paint, and then just another idea of the shading. But this one, and keep in mind, white is the absence of color in watercolor. It's the paper. There is a way to preserve the white, and that is with masking fluid. So if I was to draw this out and I decided I'm going to just do a big yellow wash over the whole entire top of this flower, I could paint this on. You want to use an old brush and clean the brush as soon as you use it, because it is stinky and sticky, but it also dries You can paint right over the top of it, and then when you're done using it, you just rub on it and roll it off, and it'll just come off. And you can look up more about masking. So now I'm just going to show you, I've got my brush. I was using this brush, this new one, for this painting that I did. I get it wet. Over here, I have paper towel and another little cloth. I always dry the edge of my brush so that it doesn't drip down into the color that I have decided to do. I don't want it to add any more water than what I want it to be. So I'm just drying off the edge of the brush. I grab some color from this one. I put it on this one. And then I can add more water. Now I'm going to just add a little bit of water in this palette to grab a little bit of water and add just a little bit more water to that. And that's what you do with watercolor. Okay, now I'm just going to do a swipe on this so you can see what it looks like. This is really runny for what I'm thinking of doing. So what I'm going to do, now that I've mixed up my paint, I'm going to rinse out my brush with dirty water, rinse it again in the clean, and that clean will actually stay pretty clean, but when it gets where it's not clean anymore, I just kind of tap the water off, and then I dry the edge. Now, in fact, I'm going to dry the brush a little bit more. Now, that same water is going to be a little drier, and now I can make a finer line with it. And that's what I want to use on these leaves down here. So I'm just going to do a few leaves, keeping in mind that white is the absence of color, and almost every picture that you see has white. So you can see just a little bit of that. And I start light and then add more on top of it. What you would do, another technique, and this is often used, it's not real good on this paper, again, because watercolor paper reacts differently, but I will show you that it is common to get the paper wet with plain water. And this is a leaf right here. And then I'm going to use the same color green, and I'm just going to dot. And you can see that the water and the paint, well, if I get it over there so you can see it, are running. And that is where that watercolor effect comes in. That technique is often used. And I don't want the edge. You can always rinse twice, dry. And with that brush, you can actually absorb any water that may have run into some place that you didn't want it to be. So with that, I just wanted to give you those tips so that it's, you can see it's not as expensive. It's a pretty inexpensive art. And there are a lot of different things that you can do. And there's tons of YouTubes that you can just visit and they'll walk through how to do a how to do a picture, a painting. These are called different names than green or red and pink. And most artists use these names. For instance, Persian blue is one of them, or ochre, that's another one. So there you go. I just wanted you to get a feel of what I've learned, and you have a great talent. I'm sure you're going to do wonderful, and love you lots. We'll talk to you later.